Other pieces of IT progress have to do with the investment landscape. Since the ITP started, the landscape for investment in agri-tech has changed significantly. We've seen the Finisterre Aotearoa Fund, specifically an agri-tech developed fund in partnership with New Zealand Growth Capital Partners has been established. We see Pacific Channel Fund in place, and we're seeing active investments in the sector as well. So from when the ITP started to what we have now, the landscape has changed in terms of the availability of investment. That doesn't mean that the job is done in that space. I think a lot of the conversation now is understanding that there's a diversity of investment models and investment tools made, but there's great progress that has been made in that space, so we'll see that continuing. Another key area that a lot of people will want to hear about, we'll talk about a bit today, is data interoperability and what that means in New Zealand. And for the first time, I think we've got some real progress where the agri-tech voice is also being heard in topics of significant importance to primary industry in New Zealand. And so often when data interoperability and regulations have been talked about, very appropriately, farmer groups such as Federated Farmers, levy groups, Dairy NZ, and others have been involved in those conversations. It's through the role of AgriTech New Zealand as an organization, but also through the ITP as an initiative that the voice of agri-tech is now being held in those, is now being heard and part of those discussions when it comes to digital foundations and the role of data within agri-tech regulations and innovations in New Zealand. So some real progress in that front. When we start looking at opportunities, there are plenty of stories out there now to start seeing, why this backing of the agri-tech sector, this growth of the agri-tech sector is fully justified and does require this team approach across an all of government focus and across an industry focus as well. I'll talk briefly through some of these high points of things that have been happening in the sector. And it would be unjust to say that any of these type of initiatives are fundamentally down to the ITP, but it would be very accurate to say that what the ITP holds true, what the ITP tries to amplify, what the ITP tries to engender and bring forward is exactly represented by the types of activities that we see when we've got Abacus Bio building their international relationships with Bayer Crop Science, when we see Way Beyond establishing their teams in new markets in South America, as two examples of just international connections, some of which have been fostered through some of the ITP activities. We also see new models of commercialization when we see open innovation type approaches with Gallagher investing in eShepherd and the family behind Trimax investing in machines at work and bringing that together. Or when we see things like science IP from plant and food research in the form of Sentient Bio going through new commercial models in the Sprout Agritech Accelerator and ultimately getting funding from Finisterre. And we know that we're going to continue seeing more examples from that cohort, from that group. We've seen Hector get 3.5 million of funding and also builds new international connections because of some of the activities that we'll be talking about shortly today. We've seen Blue Lab through Pioneer Capital get investment. We've seen Robotics Plus get investment in the asparagus harvesting through MPI. So the level of opportunity and activity that's happening in the sector is truly significant. And many of the actions that the individuals in these businesses are driving is fully in line with what the ITP is holding up to be valuable and holding up to be capabilities and tasks that we can be getting better at doing. And so I don't think you need a crystal ball to really know that agri-tech is a sector that is thriving globally. It's a sector for which New Zealand has a good set of capabilities, a reputation that is known in some quarters and is well received in quarters that we bring it to. We know that the level of investment in agri-tech and agri-food around the world is growing significantly and continues to be a significant investment class for really solid reasons, for reasons of feeding our planet, for reasons of protecting our planet.